Any meetings?
Meeting minutes, Radwan, can you probably assign it to someone?
Yeah.
Thank you so much. All right, creating RTM. So requirement traceability metrics. This is more for understanding. You may not ever do it in your actual work. Also for the interview purpose. So they may ask you about requirement traceability metrics. What is requirement traceability metrics? It's nothing but mapping out your test cases against the requirement, making sure you're covering all your requirements by your test cases. Meaning, when you're working, right, when you're in actual work, you will have hundreds of requirements, and you need to make sure that you are writing test cases for each of the requirement. So right now we have advanced tools, and those tools does the requirement coverage automatically. But let's say if you're in a situation where and your company is using some old tools or not using any tools, you have to work with Excel or something else. This is when it is very, very important. But also at the same time, you need understanding what is requirement traceability metrics is very, very important. Some cases you will still see some companies, they're not using any tools. People are they're always trying to save money for the company. So there are some cases I still see people are not using any advanced tools. They're just working on Excel, and you may face this. Don't be surprised. So at that point, it's very, very important that you understand what is requirement traceability metrics. So if we even go to our test cases example, even here, like, we can see we have, so here we have 3 requirements, right? In reality, you'll have many more requirements. RQ001, RQ002, RQ003, right? So for RQ001, you may have 1 or 2 test cases. RQ002, you may have 1 or 2 test cases. But when it comes to requirement 3, you may have like 30 to 40 test cases, and so on. Similarly, when you have more test cases, so you just need to make sure that you're writing test cases for each of the requirements, and you're mapping those out. So if I go here, let's say, so I have this test case, these 2 test cases for requirement 001. How do I 3 test cases, sorry, these 3 test cases for requirement 001. How do I know this? Because it's right here, right? It says RQ001 under the requirement ID section. Requirement 002 has these 2 test cases, maybe 3, yeah, these 3 test cases, and so on. I should open something here, right? So here, like, something Brothers Line have written those test cases. I think you have about 20 test cases for RQ003. So let me see if I have a template for RTM. Okay. Okay. So this is really simple, right? If you do not have a tool and you have to create a requirement traceability metrics, all you do, you just take requirement ID and put those test cases, and you take test cases ID and you put them against it. You don't even need this. These are the description requirement descriptions. These are test cases description. You may or may not need those. As long as you have your requirement ID against your test case ID, that would do the job. So, okay. So you see here, right? We have this requirement ID. We have 3 test cases against it. We have requirement 002, we have one test case against it. Then we have requirement 003. This is probably, yeah, marker tour. This was done last batch, I think. So this one has two test cases, requirement 004. We have multiple test cases here as well. Five point one. Okay. Does this make sense, guys? This is very simple stuff. Just making sure that you're covering your requirement with your test cases. And most of it's even done here. If you look at test cases, we have test cases, requirement ID, then we have test cases. In reality, right, we have written here requirement ID, requirement description. In reality, when you're writing test cases, you may or may not have those. In reality, your test cases will be starting from test case 001, test case ID, test case description, steps, expected result. You may or may not have requirement ID field under your test case folder. But it depends, like, how your company uses the template. I personally like to have it there, so it is very, very clear. All right, I'm not creating a traceability matrix from scratch, but I would like to understand if you're understanding why we need requirements traceability metrics. So if we're using Jira tool, right, we have our stories written separately. We're not using Excel, so we really don't have to worry about creating a requirement traceability matrix in Excel sheet. Here we are creating individually test cases, and in this case we did not start writing test cases. Let me grab something. Okay, so okay, so here I'm showing you guys in Jira. So here we have individual user stories, and under this user story we have 3 test cases written. So we don't need to worry about test coverage because we can already see our test coverage is here. On top of it, if we go to, let me open this one. On top of it, if we go to testing board, we have a test coverage section, and it will show the report of test coverage. So we don't really, this is an advanced tool, so we don't really have to worry about traceability metrics. Right here, test coverage, right? Test plan metrics, traceability, everything is here. So we don't have to write it manually like this. We don't have to write it manually. We have it under this testing board of Jira tool. Similarly, there are other tools. They have these features as well. Any questions? You have the opportunity to ask questions, guys, because we're going to move on if you don't have questions.
I have a question, bro. Assalamu
Brother.
So you said in the test board, when you click on the, can you go to the test boarding? Yeah. So you
Yeah.
said if we click on the testability, it's gonna write it by yourself. The testability is gonna write by yourself, or you don't have to write it manually, right?
No, we don't. So this is a tool, right? What it does, it gets the information from your actual tickets, right? So we have this ticket right here, 6285. And in this ticket, that tool will see does their query written in the background. It will see, let's say you have 10 tickets, right? It
Yes.
will check if you have written test cases for all the 10 tickets. If you do, then it will show 100% traceability metrics covered, and it will show it as a report format. Now, if you have written 50% of those, so let's say you have 10 tickets, you have written test case for 5 of them, it will show 50% test coverage complete, things like that. So there are queries written behind it, and it will simply show you a report. That's what it is.
Okay, thank you, brother.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
Assalamualaikum, bhai. I have a question.
Yeah.
For the time being, are we going to
Your voice is low, sister.
Can you hear me now? Hello?
Not really.
I can hear you properly.
You can try. Let's see if we can understand you.
My question was, for the time being, are we going to do the metrics manually, like you showed us, the way test plan were created? I mean, test cases were created?
If I'm understanding your question, so you're saying for the time being, if we are going to do the traceability metrics manually, was this your question?
Yes.
Okay. So when is the time being? So we are, that's a good question. So we're gonna do a project, and we will probably practice both. And so that way you guys will understand. We'll try to do both, or at least one of them. Let me see if I have a template, better template. So let me see. AI conference page. Okay, so test plan. Can't remember, I had it somewhere. A traceability metrics under this section, RTM. I have to find it. I'll find it and I'll try to share it with you guys. So, but what you can do, right? You can just Google it, research in Google, find a good template, and see, practice it. Yes, brother, you have your hand raised.
So the RTM is is usually made for like those requirements you have already done and you are already doing it, right?
Yeah, requirement is complete, and it is you have created test cases. So requirements in scope, let's say, the better word is in scope requirement for the release or the project. In
So it will
scope.
be all the requirements of you doing right now in this project, right? Not the specific sprint or.
Yes, for the specific in scope. So depends if you're working in waterfall, obviously all the requirements, right, for the project. It's going to be one big project. If you're working agile, your requirement, your RTM should be created for specific sprint or specific project. So when it comes to agile, it's hard to follow all the little things. For example, test plan and RTM, things like that. But definitely you need to have test coverage checked somewhere. And like I mentioned, those advanced tools, they that does it automatically, but if you have to do it manually, you have to find a template, good template, and do it manually. All right, so I can't seem to find it.
I had a question.
Yeah.
So is traceability metrics and test cases somewhat similar, or they're different?
No, very different. The traceability metrics is test cases are step-by-step process of testing a requirement, and traceability metrics, it's making sure that you have written your test case for each of the requirement.
Okay.
So is it safe to say it's something that connects the both?
Something connects both test cases and RTM.
No, test cases and requirements.
Yeah.
So it's there to ensure that they're connected, or it's a tool used to see how it's connected, I guess.
It's there to make sure that you have written your test cases for each of the requirement.
Yeah, I would say the key word is mapping your test cases to your requirements. That's what the RTM does.
Is this Mamoon?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Mamoon. Yeah, that's the right word, right? Mapping out your test cases against the requirement to make sure appropriate test cases against appropriate requirement to make sure that you are covering your requirement with your test cases. Okay. All right, so that's requirements traceability metrics. I would request you to maybe research a little bit about it, see if you find a good template and work on it. Regardless, we'll be practicing this during our project. Then next phase is creating test environment. So if you understand analysis of the requirement, then test plan, test cases, and then RTM. Now moving into creating test environment. We have covered it a little bit, I believe, in the past. Does anyone have any idea how to set up test environment or how to create test environment or test bed? So if you look at STLC phases, we have different phases, right? We have requirement phase, test plan phase, test cases phase, and then RTM phase. In system test case phase, we are designing our test cases. And then we have this phase where test execution phase will be executing test cases. So these two are very, very important phases. These are action item. Like this is where you take action against the application. Before doing that, right, we have this crucial phase where we're saying, let's create test environment before we start our testing. So configuring test environment or creating test environment is what we're talking about today. Now, before jumping into testing, we need to make sure that our test environment is in place. So last week, I think I've shown you guys that in my actual company, we had 4 different environments. We had a dev environment, we have a QA environment, we have a pre-prod environment, which is nothing but UAT, and we have production environment. So this environment has to be configured, and we QA, when I say configure, it has to be physically there. Someone has to create it. So this job is usually done by the dev team. Dev team creates those environment. So they have to create a dev environment and a QA environment and UAT and production. At this point of testing, we are not worried about UAT and production. We are just worried about QA, because if that application does not pass QA, we don't need further environments. But of course, we need those environment eventually, right? So let's just talk about QA environment. We are in QA environment. We have those URL for QA environment. Now, since I guess it will make more sense if I pull those. Okay, so I have to find that. Service catalog. Okay, so I have it here. Info carrier IO. Service catalog. So we have this service catalog. I think eventually I'll show you guys about this service catalog. Common issue type. I think it's too early. I can't find anything today. Okay, I'll find it. Let's continue this conversation, and I'll find it and display it to you guys. So configuring test environment. So primary job is done by the developers. They have to create the physical environment. But once it's done, they will give us access to it. They'll give us the URL. And once we have it there, before we jump into testing, we have to make sure we will have our checklist. So in our checklist, we need to make sure that we have everything from our checklist. Under this checklist, you must have a requirement in place. You must have test plan in place, test cases in place. Application under testing should be deployed to that environment that developers gives you. Application shall be deployed there. Then you should have necessary access there. So for example, if you have an application that requires authentication, you should have those details in place. If you require certain test credentials, that should be there. What else? Depending on the application, the type of application you're working on, if you need certain information that should be there, you need to have your, obviously computer is going to be there, but this is part of your checklist. Hardware, right? Hardware related stuff, software related stuff, your testers, depending on your project, right? You need to make sure that you have enough manpower to tackle that. What else? So these are the stuff. These are part of creating test environment or test bed, configuring those. Can you guys think of anything else? These are the stuff I can think of. Can you guys think of anything else? Am I missing anything else? So yeah, so as part of your test case, test environment creation, those things must be there. And I think when we talked about test plan, we went over a little bit creating test environment. So these are the things that it's there in test plan as well. You need to make sure that you're writing those in your test plan, and I think we have it in our test plan as well. So just go over it quickly. It's not a big deal, and this is something people will ask in the interview. So just understand that you need to have those checklists there for your test environment configuration. Any questions on that? All right, so next phase is test execution. So system test execution. Once you have test environment configured, now you're moving on to test execution. So in your test execution, you're just having your test cases wherever it is. If it's in the Excel sheet, you'll start executing. Here, your expected result, you're just going to add your actual result. And how do you do that? So if you're seeing my screen, we have requirement 001. We are saying as a user, I should be able to navigate to the home page of the application, and the application is this, right? Mercari Tour application. In your test cases, you're giving examples. So test case description. As a user, I should be able to navigate to the homepage of the application. So this one, I think I should have mentioned here, like using which browser. I think here you're talking about a browser. Yeah, open Chrome browser. So this test is done in Chrome browser. Unfortunately, I don't have Chrome, so I have to do it on Firefox. So here you're saying open the browser. So I have browser open, and then enter this. So every step you have to follow, right? Step 2, enter the URL, Guru99. I have entered it here, right? And then you're saying hit the enter button, which I have done already previously. And now verify homepage exists. So here I have the homepage right here, homepage exists, right? So now, so your expected result when you're number 4 is saying verify homepage exists. Under your expected result, you're saying user shall be able to see the homepage. So your actual result is simply just copy. You can just copy and paste this and just make some changes. You can just say user is able to see the homepage. That's it. As simple as that. And in your status, you can just mention pass or fail. So obviously this one is passing. That's it. That's your execution. That's your execution. You're executing your test cases here. Right. Now next one. What is next one? Same thing. Edge browser, Firefox browser. So next one is your Edge and Firefox. You're doing the same thing. This is part of your test execution. if something goes wrong, right? If something goes wrong, this is when you start logging a bug. This is when, so these things are very, very straightforward, and there's no issue here, right? So I can't really log a bug here, and logging a bug, it will take it will require an entire session to talk about what is bug and how to log bug and what is the bug life cycle and whatnot. We will talk about it definitely next week, but just understand this week couple of things, right? What is test execution? How to do test execution? It's simply nothing but following those steps. That's why when you're designing test cases, it's so important that your test case design is very unique and is very descriptive. You're not missing any steps. For example, when you're writing test cases, do not assume that you will be executing those test cases. Anyone would be executing those test cases, could be executing those test cases. So you need to make sure that when you create a test case in your tool, let's say, whether it is Jira tool, right? Add test cases, when you're hitting this button, it will have your name on it. So you want to make sure that nobody complains about you that, hey, this guy written test cases and it doesn't make sense or it's not clear. So this, or, forget about complaining. If you're not writing proper test cases, they cannot follow those steps. So make sure that each and every steps are written properly and it's very, very clear. Just like we have executed it one by one, right? So if we grab this one, let's say, what is this requirement? Requirements 003, as a user, I should be able to navigate to the flight page of that application. So look at these steps, right? Open Chrome, enter URL, hit enter, click on the flight button, verify user able to see the flight button. So now, if I miss crucial steps here, I mean, obviously this is very simple and, anyone would know what to do with this application because it's a straightforward application. But when you go to an actual work, you may not see those, like this kind of simple application. The application, you'll be amazed by seeing what an application can do. There's so much happens in the background, obviously when you go to an actual work, they're paying people millions of dollars. So if those applications are not simple, not straightforward. There is so much to learn from those applications, and those applications do so much things. So when you're designing your test cases, you need to make sure your steps are there, all the steps are there. So if we miss, let's say if we didn't write this, right? If we didn't write this and we don't know if this application is new to us, right? After going to home page, like if we do not click on the flight page and it's not there, would my test cases make sense? Probably not. So just make sure that we are writing proper test cases. So these test cases are straightforward, simple, not seeing any bugs. So we will not worry about the bugs. But next week, we're gonna talk about bugs entirely. But I request to you guys this week, you should complete these 3 phases. Obviously, test cases are done. RTM and creating system test environment and execution of test cases. This week we must complete writing, understanding these 3 phases. And also I would request you guys to execute your test cases and submit those. You have written your test cases. Some of you have written 30, some of you written 40 test cases. So just execute those test cases just like I have done here. And obviously you have more fields. You can put the date and you can put your name here, created by, and your actual result, whatever your actual result is. Here is, we are saying expected result is user shall be able to see the home page. you should use proper wording that shows that actual result, right? Or if you cannot find proper wording, you can just simply write here actual result is expected result equal to actual result. Or yeah, you can say that, or you can find proper wording that that would indicate that test case is working as expected, basically. Now, in case if you find any issue, instead of pass, just write fail, and we'll log the bug together next week, if that makes sense. Any questions?
We can actually create like usernames and passwords on that dummy website.
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
The requirement is for, since they have said that the requirement is for creating, then it's not going to work in the username anything, right? So that the
Sorry?
requirement will not be able to execute.
I'm sorry, brother. I missed your question. Can you repeat that?
The requirement will not be able to execute it, right? Because since it is for the creating the account.
No, so it's creating the, yeah, it's for the creating account registration field. So just change the requirement. Instead of sign on page, just say user registration, and you should be good to go. And I think requirement 003 is very, very crucial for to execute. I think you all should execute requirement 003. That has so much information, and you'll learn a lot.
Question
Also-
by.
Yeah.
So you actually want us to make an account and execute all the test
Yeah.
cases, right? Okay.
Yeah, everything, yeah. So requirement 001 and 2, I think it does not require for you to create any account, but when you move to requirement 003, that's when you need to create an actual account. Yeah, this was a huge miss, right? I don't know if we have done it purposely. This was created in last batch, and I remember we have entered some information purposely that for the students to ask questions. So I don't know if this was part of it or not, but regardless, we should have caught it early stage. And now you understand why, because we're in test execution phase, but the requirement is not yet defined properly or complete. Anyway, so the other thing is, other announcement is, guys, we're getting very close to start our actual project. I think we have maybe a couple of more classes, and then we're going to jump into creating the project and start working on the project. I would request all of you guys, do not miss any classes when it comes to actual project, because that's what will make you a QA and prepare you to go get a job. If you miss those crucial time when we're in the actual project, you won't be able to cover it, and we may or may not be able to record those, because those are actual work, and it's hard to record those, because a lecture you can record, but when it comes to actual work, it's hard to record. So start thinking about it. Do not miss classes when it comes to actual project, because that will be very, very unique experience, and that will build you as a QA. So that's my request. Yeah, I don't have anything else this week. Shabar, do you want to stay back and all the leads? We can talk here, or we can set up something later.
Let's know, Kadir bhai, let's get it done now.
Let's get it done. Okay. So guys, any other questions, concerns, suggestions? I do apologize. I think I wasn't very prepared today. I do apologize. But next week will be better, inshallah.